I'd like to call the work session to order for April 7th, 2025. City Clerk, please read the roll.
Let the record reflect that all members are present.
Thank you. We have 2 items on the agenda tonight. I would like to remind council staff will be pausing every so often to answer any questions. First up is a fiscal year 2025 strategic plan with water resource allocation policy. Please introduce yourself for the public.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Barbara Chappell, Water Services Director. Am I on? Yeah, you're on. Okay, sorry. Thank you. So our item tonight was to look at a water resource allocation policy, and the action item was to create a policy regarding the sale of city's water resources for development. So tonight we're going to go over a few items: the purpose of the policy, the scope of our policy, how water will be allocated under this policy, and then how we might handle a large water user when they come in, some additional provisions that we would like to see in our policy, and then finally our next steps and how we'll move forward. So the first item I want to talk about is the purpose. So as you all know, the city has a 100-year assured water supply, and as such, we are a designated provider. We have an application that we submitted to the State Department of Water Resources a little over a year ago that would add roughly 10,000 acre-feet per year to our portfolio. And as shown in this picture, we have a pretty diverse portfolio that does allow for that additional growth. We're showing here how we expect growth to occur over the next 20, 30 years. There is some uncertainty on the Colorado River, and we anticipate some shortages in our future. We are participating in projects such as the Bartlett Dam modification to provide a backstop to the loss of some of those resources as we move forward in the future. For these reasons, we think it's important to have clear direction and the tools to assist city staff in communicating with our development community. So the scope of the policy would cover the city's service area only. It covers water resources, not infrastructure. So there's still the infrastructure component to deliver those resources. This is the legal paper water only. So what I want to point out in this image is the city's planning area is defined by the black and white dashed line. And you can see even within water planning area 2, there is undeveloped parcels. So the darker the shading, the higher the percentage of completion of development of those parcels. So even in water planning area 2, there are areas that are vacant that we do not currently serve. And then looking into water planning area 3, one of the larger areas, which is known as King Ranch, they call it Rio 1900, is also shown there, no development so far. So we think it's really important that we establish a policy that would manage growth in these areas prior to moving south of water planning area 3. So even within those areas, there are unincorporated areas. So the black and white dashed line, again, is the planning area boundary, not the city's current boundary. So I just want to make sure that was clear. And then down in the south, there may be an option for private providers to help if the timing doesn't match what we are working on here as a city provider. So how this policy would lay out, we would have an allocation for every undeveloped parcel in our service area. And so we would use the recently adopted Integrated Water Master Plan and the land use layer that we have associated with that to assign a resource allocation for each undeveloped parcel. So for example, if a 100-acre parcel came in and they wanted to do single-family residential at a rate of 4 dwelling units per acre, they would get 400 homes on that parcel, and they would get 160,000 gallons per day. And so any project that a developer would bring in would have that much water to do their project. So if they wanted to do something completely different, they would have to show the Development Services Department how their project fits that water budget. So if there was a parcel that's already developed, we have data from our utility billing account or system that tells us how much water has historically been used on those parcels. And we would, in this policy, we would recommend we use historic consumption as their allocation. So moving forward. And in order to facilitate this policy and implement it, we are working with IT to develop a GIS tool that would allow our partners in development services the ability to just click on a parcel in a map, and that would tell them how much water was allocated for that parcel. So when a developer is in the due diligence phase, as early as possible in the process, we would be communicating to them how much water they have for their development. So large water users. So say someone comes in and they need way more water than what we have allocated for their location they're looking to develop. So they want to request an increase. There's a few possible outcomes. First of all, we could suggest maybe a different location where there is a higher allocation, where the land use was expected to have a more intense water use. We could have them bring a water supply so they could go purchase water from or lease water from, say, the Gila River Indian community or somewhere in the state. Or if resources are available in the city's portfolio, they could purchase additional resources from the city's portfolio. Those would be ways we could handle a large water user. Additional recommendations for this policy is that when we annex properties, we don't make long-term reservations of water resources. We would hate to set aside, say, water resources for a development agreement on a project that sits and doesn't go anywhere in 20 years, but then turn around and have to tell someone no tomorrow because we had made a long-term commitment to a resource that's so far down the road, we have no idea when they're coming in. Zoning or rezoning a property does not change the water allocation within this policy the way we have it written. Again, even if they wanted to change the zoning on a parcel, it doesn't change the underlying allocation that was assigned to that parcel. We would strongly discourage and hopefully prohibit even self-service within the city's service area, and would definitely oppose anyone trying to drill a well within our service area. That's water that's physically available and sitting in our designation that we would not want someone to come and pump and try to use on their own parcel. We also don't want people to move an allocation, say buy an extra parcel and then try and use the allocation from both parcels to develop one property. That would leave the city with a vacant parcel potentially in the middle of their city, and that would not look good. We'll be updating our water service agreements. That's an agreement that everybody who signs up for water billing, an account and gets a meter has to sign a service agreement, and just notifies them of the city's ordinances and policies, that we have a drought plan, that we have a water waste ordinance. We just want to make sure that everyone is notified of the city's water policies. So we're going to require everybody to sign this agreement when they sign up. And so next steps moving forward, I'd like to get some feedback from you all tonight, implement that feedback into the policy, and bring it forward hopefully later this spring for adoption. We'll also complete developing the GIS tracking tool and train staff so that we can get that implemented and put into use. And then finally, this fall, we'll be bringing forward the ordinances that are required in order for us to enact and to implement the policy with the development community. So with that, I'll take any questions or discussion on policy.
Who's first up? Go ahead, Laura.
Well, I want to thank you and Keeney for meeting with me earlier this morning, because I'm really excited about doing this, and from what I understand, this is the first time that we've made a water allocation policy. And I really love the good work we're doing through the strategic plan and seeing all these things come through in work sessions, and we're really accomplishing things that really help set some structures and guardrails around this, the work we do, because the world has changed. We talked about that today. Goodyear 10 years ago was a lot different than Goodyear now. And so these kinds of things are really very, very helpful. This is an interesting topic because even in the time that I've been here on council, there have been projects such, we talked about Rainbow Valley, faraway places that have been in the works for years. And there's different discussions, and it's interesting, even over time, there's different water directors, development services directors, city managers, even city council, and how important it is to maintain some type of continuity over those discussions and over that time, because fast forward 10 years, we're still talking about things that are going on there, especially related to water. So I think that that's important that we be able to capture that. And as you explained to me today, that this is a high-level document, and we are going to take this and write the ordinances, but I think it's important to signal some of the things that I think are important for the ordinances, but that are not necessarily covered here. I know it's really critical to make sure that this document is flexible to meet the city needs, but there are a lot of decision points that come up related to large water users, annexation, and zoning. And ultimately, I think we're going to need, because every case is different, every project is different, some sort of decision process that makes sure that includes development services, ECDEV, certainly the water department, which is very critical. But then ultimately some might warrant, well, I think everything includes the city manager's office, but some may warrant city council consultation just because of the nature of the project, and making sure that maybe somebody in your apartment just doesn't say no to the whole thing, and that we do have some type of structure for decision making. There's been a couple instances where we've had high water users come in unexpectedly, and so looking at your high water users, we don't have to accommodate everyone. I think that's what you're trying to convey. Yeah. We might be able to, but I don't know that necessarily we're obligated to, and I'd like to hear from you on that.
Correct. That was the little bit of flexibility we want to have. We do think it's important to address, because you're 100% correct. There may be something that we may need to consult with council. I don't know if that's like an e-session, we would certainly, I am not an economic development professional, so I would not know necessarily what
cost-benefit analysis,
what those projects might be, but I would certainly utilize those experts here in the city and make sure that we're not going to miss out on something potentially. At the same time, understanding that we do have a limited resource, and so having a policy in place and an ability to handle these one-offs was important for us, but that we have guidance and clarity for development services staff and the applicants when they come in with at least this is the starting point, this is our guideline, this is what we need to try to develop within.
So with a large water user, I mean, we could give them additional water, or require them to get additional water if that's what they choose to do. But there's a statement here at market rate cost. Does that mean that's at our cost, or what is market rate?
Market rate for us would be what the market's bearing today for that resource. We do often check with other communities and what water is being purchased out there. But in any case, these have to be a 100-year supply. And so that's really important for those developers, because oftentimes their business models are looking at maybe 10 or 15-year futures. But as a designated provider, everybody we commit to serve has to have a 100-year supply. So when we are looking for those resources, that is an important piece for them.
And so we discussed today annexation and rezoning, same kind of thing, you know, just wanting to make sure that we do have some type of decision structure in place for those types of things. And self-service, in the policy, it says self-service is discouraged. And I understand that because you don't want somebody setting up a well, but tonight you said preferably prohibited. Could we use a word that's a little bit more directive than discouraged? Because that almost sounds optional. If I lean on you
Yes.
enough, maybe we can do it. Okay.
We will definitely work on that with
Okay.
our attorneys while
Very
we're working
good.
on ordinances. How about-
All right, well, I'm very excited that we're putting this into place. I look forward to the future ordinances that are going to come. I think, as we talked about today, Goodyear is in a position where we can be much more discerning about the decisions we make on the water users, and we've had some hard lessons with some unexpected high water users that we've lived and learned. And, you know, hopefully we have things in place now through this to accommodate, we don't get fooled again. So thank you, Barbara, for your
Thank you.
and your team's work on this.
Brandon?
So, thank you for the work. So I'm just trying to make sure, I think Councilwoman Kano said a lot of this here, but I just want to verify some things. So these are all users, this is businesses as well. And in the past, this policy will set it up so you come to us more to ask for permission for these users or less? Do you need permission from us for those?
Well, I don't know that it would be more or less. We do discuss at least in my recent past, we've come to council for development agreements for those additional users that are far removed from our service area. This policy just helps provide that clarity for the development services staff so they have an understanding of what water is available for a project based on its geographic location in the city.
Okay, because I'm thinking like, for example, like Niagara Bottling Company, we let that pass because it was such a high user. And I don't know if that was, who that was directed by or what that, where it came from, if it was part of the policy or if that was just a good active thing between development services and us not to take because of the such high water user that it was. But I'm just trying to make sure there's flexibility, and to your point that if a great company or something comes to the city that we can take it if we want. And I'm trying to make sure, I know you mentioned that it wouldn't be, but I'm trying to figure out how, if we say this is so much water can be used in this parcel versus that parcel versus future built out of the city. I just want to make sure that we're not limiting, and you mentioned that, but I'm not sure how that's going to work. So how do we prevent us from earmarking a certain amount of water and then I don't want to block a development or something from coming here that we tell them that, well, we have water 50 years from now that has to be allocated.
This will provide clarity by allocating water to the parcels that haven't been developed. But as projects come in through this policy, it gives us direction as to what might be able to go there. But if it's one of those unicorns or something that there's a cost, benefit analysis by ACDEV, we want to write into the ordinance that there's flexibility for what I call the unicorns,
Yeah. I
those.
just want to make sure there's flexibility because I don't want to get locked in or say, oh, sorry, you can't come here because we don't have enough water. We don't have water for you, or it's not earmarked for that parcel. So I make sure that it is flexible, that we can figure that out. wherever
Okay,
that looks
understood.
like.
Thank you.
And then, does this supersede or go along with state law? Is this something that is just in line, or are we going over and above, or is this something
So
that?
this is strictly for our service area. It's not required that we have the policy by state law. It is within our designation. We have the ability to do this. And so it's not, I wouldn't say there's any state law that says, that prescribes
have to
a
do
policy that you have to do this.
So we're
No.
going over and above?
Yes.
Okay, and then, is it other cities doing this right now? Or are we one
I
of the
do
first?
know that Chandler had adopted a policy in the past. I think they're getting ready to revise it. They've had one for a while, but I'm not aware of other cities having
I was
one.
curious. No, I like the idea of trying to make sure that we're prepared, but also I don't want to block anything from coming to the city or tell the community that we don't have water to build, keep continuing to build what we're trying to build. for our goals here at the city. So, but yeah, no, it makes sense that we're doing this. So to try to give development services an idea, a general idea of how much water has reached the area. And is there a process going to be in place where if we rezone something from commercial or apartments to commercial or whatever it ends up being, that automatically goes through the process to reallocate that potential water use?
Rezoning will not reallocate water.
Okay, so who,
They would still have to develop within the original budget.
yeah, but let's say we change
So-
something in the future. It's earmarked for something today and we allocate water for that parcel, then the developer comes back and they ask us to switch it to a different user that's more or less water. Does there something in our process that then changes the allocation to the new zoning?
The three options that she listed there was they could purchase water from us if we have them. They could purchase water from other agencies or whatever. What was the third one? I'm
Or
sorry.
they could find another parcel that had more
Or another-
water
Okay.
resources available. So if they purchase additional water, then yes, we would update that policy. We would update that in GIS so that it was aware, that there is more water for that parcel because they purchased it. But if they rezone, they don't automatically get more of the city's portfolio just because they rezoned. Because that would essentially take from another undeveloped parcel that we
Yeah.
had allocated water for.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we don't, I'll be flexible, I guess. If there is something that comes in and wants to zone from, I don't know, something to amazing, I don't know, something amazingly commercial, something commercial that's great, that we're not punishing them. Say, sorry, we zoned it this, so this is what it has to be, so we're gonna make you pay for more water, as opposed to just being part of our water portfolio. So I don't wanna, just any unintended consequences where a great economic development thing comes in and we're like, sorry, that was earmarked housing, but I know you wanna make it commercial, but now you're gonna get punished, and we're gonna charge you extra water for that parcel. So I just wanna make sure that, I understand getting
Yeah.
recouped and things like that, I just wanna be flexible with that as well.
Yep.
So,
Understand,
that'd be
thank you.
that'd be my feedback, so, thank you.
Okay.
Next. Go ahead, Wally.
Well, I like the GIS development of the tool because it's really critical when a developer does come into town, they want to know what water is available, because that's probably the first question they ask. They don't ask the size of the parcel, but they'll ask, is there water? And if so, who gets it, or who gives it to me, and how much does it cost, or whatever. So I really am glad that we're going to do that. That will help development services and all of Katie's people. And in fact, it'll help everyone when they're looking at us, then they'll know what water is allocated and where they can go. And I like the thought that if they're going to need more water, we suggest another parcel, because we have a lot of land available all over. And it's great to do this before we get all developed, because you can't undo something that you've already done. So at least we're getting a blueprint and we'll be able to move forward. We'll probably tweak this 5 million times. Nothing is permanent. I've never seen anything that has come before this council in 15 years that's been permanent, because we change it if we want to. And I know no matter who is our water director, they're gonna be on top of it because water is so critical. And without water, we can't develop at all. So this is just hypothetical. So how are you going to find out if someone is drilling an illegal well and they don't ask for permits? How do you know?
So in order to drill a well in the state of Arizona, you have to get a permit from the Arizona Department of Water Resources.
Well, then do they tell you?
So then the State Department of Water Resources notifies us that someone's trying to drill a well in our service area. And there's a
Good.
public process, and we could oppose that. We would oppose
And we can't put a
tell.
penalty if they try to do that, can we, Mr. City Attorney? Or is that being too tight?
Now, if we have it as a requirement of our ordinances to get city permission to drill contrary, we could cite them. We can incorporate that into our ordinance.
Okay, that would be good, because, people are always trying to beat the buck or get around it or figure out something, or they know somebody who says it's okay and it's really not okay. But we need to let them know it is not okay, period, anywhere in this city. Because we have to take care of our own aqueducts, and we have to take care of our own wells. And we know what we have, and that's what we're using. So thank you, Barbara. This is really very timely, and it's necessary that we get going on this. So I'll be anxious to see it come back and see what you've done to it.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes?
I just like to say that I agree this is very forward-thinking of us as a city and high level, and I appreciate that in moving forward, this is a good idea. I agree with Laura on the issue regarding the self-service is discouraged. We need something a little stronger than that. That's all, thank you.
We will definitely do that, and I thank you all for making this a strategic plan item.
We good? Then I'll close it out. You know what, I appreciate what Laura did. I kind of agree with all those points that have been made so far. The one thing I'd like to see emphasized, though, drop saved is drop we don't have to pump. So somehow in there work something that deals with conservation. All right, we want to encourage conservation no matter what we do on how they approve when they end up getting the parcel improved, because you know, we had an earlier discussion on when it comes to grass versus, you know, the fake stuff versus, you know, desert landscaping and all that. And as we grow, the more conservation I think we can work through there. And I know that's not going to impact necessarily when you do your GIS, but I really think I'd like to see more and more of a focus on that. Does that help there?
Yeah, we do have in the strategic plan conservation, and that's going to be part of our zoning also as we go
Okay.
through the update to the zoning ordinance. So we are working on
So that'll be
that.
tied into that? Okay,
We are
because I think that's really critical. That's going to help on our water needs as we grow as well, so.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Let's see, next up, the last item is procurement code update. It's like that famous game show. Come on down. Just go ahead and, if you would, please introduce yourself for the audience.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, my name is Jared Askelson. I'm the finance director here with the City of Goodyear. I have tonight with me Deputy Finance Director Kevin Custer, and we're here to discuss a procurement code update. We haven't touched the procurement code in over 10 years, so it's time to look at some updates to the procurement code.
Okay.
Any second now. You may have. Let's go with that. Okay. Ooh, now it's going too fast. All right. So what does our procurement code provide for us? It provides oversight over our processes for procuring items, provides transparency to the process, holds the people in the process accountable for their actions, and then also, probably the most important thing is stewardship of public funds. This presentation might be a little bit out of order. So a couple of things we're going to talk about. First is some thresholds that we have. Specifically, this slide here is talking about the thresholds that we have for expenditure authority. There are two categories that we have of expenditure authority, those that are budgeted and things that are unbudgeted. Currently, the council has adopted a resolution that has the unbudgeted threshold set at $75,000 and the budgeted threshold at $500,000. The recommendation that we have going forward is actually not to change those thresholds, but it is to change the manner in which we are adopting the expenditure authority. So currently, you see each of those items coming to council as individual items. I think there was an item a few council meetings ago that spoke about a CIP project, and it was merely for expenditure authority, but it caused a little bit of delay because we thought, well, isn't there supposed to be a budget amendment that goes with it? Well, actually, it didn't need a budget amendment, but it did need expenditure authorized by council. So one of the recommendations that we have in the language that we're updating is to change the process in which we're getting the expenditure authority, so that with the budget process, we'll bring forward a schedule that includes all of the items that are above $500,000 and adopt those along with the budget. So we would then be able to speed up some of the CIP projects, for instance, because that project had to wait until we went to council to get that expenditure authority, even though it was approved as part of the annual budget. So that's one of the changes we'll be looking to do. Give it a second. I think it might just be me. So as I mentioned, the last time we updated the procurement code was in 2008, and one of the things that we did is we looked at other benchmark cities. One of the things we're looking at is in the code, it talks about thresholds at which we do certain formal procurement, and it is not the same presentation.
It's different.
Is it not what we voted? I'm talking over your shoulder, sorry.
I think we can keep going though. And obviously this is time to have conversation and questions as we go too. So if this being out of order starts to draw questions, then go ahead and ask them. So as I mentioned in the history, it was last updated in 2008. We've looked at benchmark cities, really looking at the thresholds at which formal procurement begins. Currently our threshold is $50,000. We're looking to increase the threshold for formal procurement from $50,000 to $100,000. Currently, only us and Surprise from the comparable cities that we looked at are at $50,000. The other cities were all at $100,000. We're also looking at revising the approval process for legal and audit contracts. Currently, all legal contracts will go to the attorney. We're going to continue that process, but audit contracts currently have to be approved by the finance director, which made a lot of sense before we had a city auditor that was going to be coming on board. So we will be updating that. What do we have here?
Maybe it's the right one?
This is looking a little bit better. Okay. Let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about what governs our procurement process. So first we start at the city charter. Within the city charter, Article 8 talks about contracts, and in that article, it says that council will adopt rules, and we do that with the city code. Within the city code, the council delegates some of the regulations to the procurement manager. So we also have procurement regulations. Finally, we have state statute. State statute, we use it generally as a guide, and in some cases, there are specific things that we use as our thresholds, and we'll talk about one of those a little bit later. So within the city code, we got four main things that we're looking at. Definitions and process, so there's quite a bit of the update that we're looking at is regarding definitions and process. Updating to the latest, making sure we're modernized and have the ability to use electronic formats, that type of thing. Also, some of the definitions, again, being 17 years old, needed to be updated. Thresholds, specifically the dollar thresholds at which we are going to be doing formal procurement, the expenditure authority, which I spoke about. And finally, we have disposition of surplus property. In that case, we just want to align the city code and the procurement section with other sections of the code. So let's talk about the thresholds. Starts at formal procurement. The amount is $50,000 or more. And once it hits $50,000, it's lined out in city code that we will have a formal procurement. And in a minute, Kevin will talk a little bit about what that means to have a formal procurement. Below that, it's governed by our procurement regulations that are defined by our procurement manager. So for items over $15,000 but less than $50,000, the quotes are gathered by our centralized procurement staff to make sure it's documented in a certain way. Below $15,000 but $2,500 or more, the individual departments can gather their own quotes. This documentation is, we have trainings on that, on what department should be gathering in that, but as you go down the dollar thresholds, it becomes less centralized so that we don't tie up everyone while we're using the centralized resources to do these purchases. All of those items from $2,500 and above have a competition component to them. So we're looking at the quotes, we're looking at qualifications, that type of thing as we go up. Below $2,499, those are direct purchases, generally guided by good stewardship of public funds, but don't necessarily have to have quotes. Guidance is find the best price that you can for items under $2,499. What you'll see a lot of times is those items will be using a P card for purchase. Those items also don't require a purchase order, really to streamline the process for those smaller dollar purchases. The last item we have is job order contracting. We'll talk specifically about that. Currently, we receive our threshold guidance from state statute, and it's set at $1 million. However, individual items can change based on council approval. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin to talk about formal procurement.
Thanks. As you mentioned, my name is Kevin Custer, Deputy Director of Finance. So formal procurement is really a process that requires, it's managed by procurement staff. It's a more involved process where we have an advertisement in the paper. There's going to be a panel that reviews those. Typically, you're looking at anywhere from, 30 days to 60 days for that process to happen. 30 days would be a very fast process in this case. But it's a scheduled process. There's specific review and evaluation that happens in formal procurement. And this is the current threshold that the city has, which is $50,000. And you can see across the bar chart here, several other cities have already increased that to $100,000 to kind of expedite the process of procurement. So our proposal is to increase the formal procurement threshold from $50,000 to $1,000, putting us, or I'm sorry, $100,000, to put us better in line with best practice in the cities. And then the next, we have job order contracting. And job order contracting is an alternative project delivery method for construction. And it's established in state statute. As Jared said, it does have a limitation per job order of $1 million unless the governing body of the agency or city makes a decision to change that. They can go up or down depending on the projects. It is a qualifications-based selection process. It's typically, you can think of it as an on-call for construction. So you get a master contract in place, you have that contractor available to you, and then you can use them for less complex jobs that you have throughout the city that require like a time is of the essence type of process to it. There's severe time and management benefits for job order contracting because you already have that contract in place. You don't have to worry about doing the selection process and getting that master agreement set up. This is a chart of the thresholds that have been set by some cities throughout the valley. You can see that we're down at 1 million, which is state statute. Other ones have been a little bit higher. You see City of Peoria, City of Tempe is at 5 million. You can also set these thresholds based on different categories as well. So what we're looking to do here is we're looking to kind of mirror what Peoria and Tempe has done and set a maximum job order limit at $5 million. And then if we have a situation that we feel that a job order contract would be best served for a project that maybe be over $5 million, we would have to take that back to council for approval for that.
So let's talk about expenditure authority. I kind of hammered through this earlier in the presentation. So expenditure authority by the current code exists for all budgeted items. However, council can designate thresholds for additional approval, and council has done that back in 2009 and set the limit for any items that are budgeted that don't require a budget amendment at $500,000, and unbudgeted items are at $75,000. Now, we're not actually recommending to change that threshold. One of the reasons why is $500,000 lines up with our CIP threshold as well. So our capital improvement plan projects also line up with $500,000. We are looking to actually establish the expenditure authority through the budget process. So currently when we adopt the budget is adopted using state schedules, and that doesn't go down to the $500,000 threshold amount. So we're looking to bring with the budget process an exhibit that will have all of the items that are $500,000 or more, receive that expenditure authorization with the budget adoption, and then be able to use that as we go throughout the year. The example that we have here is just an example of what the schedule may look like. It'll have a reference number on it. So when a department wants to get a purchase order going, they would use that reference number so that we know it has been approved by council and it has the proper expenditure authority. A couple of the other cleanup items, surplus property. So in the procurement code, section 3-6-3, talking about the surplus property management rules, we needed to put in some clarification that says that firearms and police canines will follow the Article 4-4, specifically for police department property disposition, so there's no confusion between the two. And then additionally, for abandoned and unclaimed property, there's a section in Article 4-4 that covers that. So in the procurement code section, we want to refer to that for any governance on police abandoned and unclaimed property. So to kind of go through the major recommendations outside of quite a bit of language cleanup and of the definitions and the processes, the major things are the thresholds. So formal procurement, we would like to move that from $50,000 up to $100,000, set the job order contracting threshold in our code at $5 million, establish a process to adopt the expenditure authority with the budget, and then finally just align the sections of the procurement code with the police department's sections on surplus property. And with that, are there any questions?
How many jobs come before you guys typically that are $5 million jobs per year?
For the job order contracting, well,
I can take that. So right now we have one job that was pushing the limit to 5 million. And so what we do is for job order contracting, since we don't have our own program currently, we can actually use other cities' contracts that are job order contracts. And those other cities set those limits either through their code or through the contract itself. This contract happened to be a $5 million limit contract, so we were able to use that for up to 5 million. And right now we only have one of those.
When? Last year?
Last year that's the one we have, it's actually from last year. We actually have 4 contracts that are above $1 million out of our 17 that we use, and all of the rest of those are underneath $1 million. I'm sorry, did I say 100,000? So it's $1 million to $5 million. We have 4 contracts.
Okay.
Everything else is less than that, and the average job is around $650,000.
Okay, and what about 50,000 that you're wanting to increase?
For 50,000, if we increase that from $50,000 to $100,000, that'll approximately hit 250 of our purchase orders, which is about 15% of the purchase orders that we have.
All right, thank you.
The increase from 50,000 to 100,000 makes sense. I mean, in terms of inflation alone, I mean, that does. But for the job order contracting, it's a big jump from $1 million to $5 million. So is everything that would come through that has already been budgeted? Or part of CIP or something? It's something we've already allocated money for?
So really, since, other than the one item that we had that was $5 million, all of the items are budgeted. This would be another tool that we could use. There may be other projects that currently live in that area from $1 million to $5 million that we could use a job order contract for. So they would be budgeted projects, but currently, if we're really dependent on another city having a contract that would match the type of work we're doing, if it's over $1 million. So this would open up the toolbox, so to speak, for other projects. So they would be budgeted projects. It's just we would be using a different delivery method today, and it would allow us to use this delivery method.
Still feels like a big jump. And what is do we have an internal process for saying there's a committee or a group or you or a couple people that say, yeah, we're going to go ahead and do this, we're going to do that? It's not, I'm sure your best practices doesn't leave it to one person to make these decisions.
So generally, the departments will approach the procurement department and talk about the delivery method that we are going to use. And they look at a lot of different factors when they do that. Well, one of the things is if they have a contract in hand and it's a decent contract from another city, there's no reason to delay a project potentially to go out for a bid. But to answer your question, no one person, in the end, the procurement manager does have the authority to make a decision. However, no one person makes that decision.
Well, I know that procurements are interesting because they can be challenged and, there's a lot of different things about it. Is the procurement process going to be subject to internal audits as well?
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why we want to update this code right now. We know there is an internal auditor on their way, and we would like to update this along with all of our regulations below that and have trainings for all of the departments on the new regulations, the updates to the code, so that when an internal auditor comes in, I mean, quite honestly, we'll tell that internal auditor, there's a few commonly audited processes, and procurement is going to be one of them. So that's the expectation.
All right, well, again, for the formal procurement from 50 to 100, I'm fine. I feel a little hesitant on the 1 to 5 million jump.
Anybody else? Did you? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it and getting more meat on the bones for the processes and everything here. So, yeah, it does seem like a big jump from 1 to 5, but would it be I don't know if you have that graph again on there. Was that the top in the region? Or 6, City of Peoria to 6? That is kind of a big jump. But yeah, so I'd be curious what would happen there.
That's 5. That's 5.
Oh, 5, yeah. But, it's 5. My eye, I'm getting old. I need to look closer on my screen. So. Okay, yeah, so it is, I know it's up there with other people here, but it is kind of high. But I don't know, I mean, if it gives you more, should be flexible, but also have the requirements in place. So I'm okay if there's good policies in place to make sure it's in control. And then, yeah, I do like that you guys are going out and partnering with other cities to try to save costs and skills, efficiencies, and things like that. And then, how easy is it for a vendor to get on our supplier list? Do they just call the city? Because I've had a few people in the community that wanted to work with the city, and I don't know if they have a one-stop place that they go to for any and all type contracts in the city, so they can get a fair shot at trying to support the city as well. So
Yeah, I can take that question. So the best place to reach out to is going to be your procurement staff, because they have the ability to look at the entire city's worth of purchases that are being made.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, they'll reach out to their specific niche, which is maybe it's, if it's a pavement company, they'll reach out to Public Works, and they'll say, hey, how do I get to do business with the city of Goodyear? And ultimately, what it comes down to is, what's the dollar threshold that we're talking about? If it's something that's a formal procurement, then we would, by all means, want them to sign up in our e-procurement system, Bonfire, so they can receive those notices that, hey, we have a bid that's going out, being published in the newspaper, so there's another way they can see that, and then, of course, to encourage them to bid on those. But they can sign up through procurement staff to be on that list.
okay, so our staff know to send all calls to a one-stop shop in procurement then?
Yeah.
Okay, and then when the procurement would then help them with getting on that app or getting on that
Correct.
system and try to help them get to where they need to go.
Yeah, and they could even go just to the website, because in the website, they can go into Bonfire, which is the system, and they can register there to be in the know of everything that goes out that's related to their work.
Okay,
Yeah.
is that pretty easy to get to on there? It's just like
Yeah.
going to
It's on
procurement?
it's under the finance page under procurement.
Okay, well, it's good to know, because I've had a few, like 10 people call me throughout the years at least, or more, probably,
It's
who
common.
wanted to work with the city, and I'm like, I don't know exactly where to send you, so call the city. So, okay, thank you.
Wally?
So I'm doing my math. It's 13 years that we're taking a look at this. So 13 years ago, we didn't have the money that we have today, and we didn't have the development that we have today. And just remembering how much it costs when we were doing some building, and it wasn't a cost override, but the supplies went up tremendously. The cement went up tremendously. And sometimes your contracts need a larger threshold to get finished. And I don't think 5,000 is,
5 million.
I mean, 5 million, I wish it was 5,000. I don't think 5 million is out of line because the other cities are doing it. Why would we just stay at 1 million? And then if we stayed at 1 million, then that means, does it come back to council for approval and then it delays the developer? And, I mean, everything has ramifications with what we do.
Correct, that's, if something were to go over the threshold, we'd bring it back to council, and that would potentially cause a delay. If we have a dollar threshold and we have it set, then it's on staff to make sure that we plan accordingly for
Right.
that project, to make
Right.
sure that we still make all of the dates that we need to make.
Yeah, well, sometimes we can't foresee what's going to happen when you start a big project. I mean, look at us building our fire stations. We thought it was, what, 3 or 4 million, and what was it, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 million? And it's not their fault, it's just that's what it costs to do business today. So, I'm glad we're bringing it up to date, because we want to be competitive with everyone else. And there's no sense of us micromanaging what you're doing, because we're not gonna have an auditor on staff that's going to watch everything for us. So, thank you for bringing it forward.
Trey?
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to say, everything in here, to my understanding, is still, there's still the oversight. And as long as we still have the oversight, multiple eyes on things, I'm completely in favor of, as I would see it, just kind of cutting a little bit of red tape and letting you guys and everyone do their jobs a little bit more efficiently.
Yeah, the only thing I would like to add is, we've got an internal auditor coming on board. It's probably one of the first places they're gonna look when they come in, right? Is procurement, because that's where all the money's rolling through. So I have no problem moving it up to the 5, because I know the internal auditor is gonna be zeroing in on this stuff, so, as part of their job. So with that, thank you. Now, we're gonna need, let's see, no further business to discuss. We'll adjourn this meeting, but we need about 15 minutes for them to set up over at the council chambers, okay? This meeting's over.